less than 2% of white Americans owned slaves.
Jillian, I'm surprised that you're trying to litigate who was the beneficiary of slavery and
I'm not.
And it makes sense to me that someone like Jillian Michaels would say something like this. She is from a reality TV show. She's known for the show The Biggest Loser. It was a show where they would bring on people who were overweight, struggling with image and everything, and they would help them lose weight by making them do slavery.
Black people worked too hard to become black Americans in this society, and we were slaves here. And we did a lot of free work.
Katt Williams just went off on Jillian Michaels, and the way he exposed her is wild. So Jillian went on CNN acting bold, saying people need to stop bringing up slavery because, according to her, less than 2% of white Americans owned slaves. Can you believe that? She tried to downplay centuries of pain like it was just some minor footnote in history. Katt wasn't having it. He clapped back, asking why it's only black people who get told to forget their history. Because when it comes to other groups and their historical traumas, the rules magically change. They get remembrance days, museums built in their honor, dedicated chapters in school textbooks, government funding for research, and blockbuster films to keep their stories alive forever.
He's not whitewashing slavery. So
he's not?
He's not. No,
okay.
He's not. And you cannot tie imperialism and racism and slavery to just one race, which is pretty much what every single exhibit does. But let's talk about the fact that when you
can't tie slavery.
Let's talk about the fact.
Slavery in America was.
Do you realize that only less than 2% of white Americans owned slaves?
But it was a system of white supremacy.
You realize that slavery is thousands of years old?
White people were
Do you know who was
American
the first race to try to end slavery?
Wait a second.
Well, what's controversial?
But when black folks bring up slavery, Jim Crow, redlining, mass incarceration, or police violence, suddenly the world screams, move on. That double standard had Katt heated. And let's be clear, Jillian's only 2% claim wasn't just offensive, it was flat out wrong. She went on national TV twisting numbers while ignoring the fact that slavery built the foundation of America's wealth. Katt reminded everyone that oppression didn't end with emancipation. It morphed into new systems that still choke black communities today.
Ready to get this racism past us? Like, no white person in here has ever had a slave a day in your life. Don't you want to get this the off of you? Pay those mother reparations.
Now, Katt doesn't just joke around, he teaches while he jokes, and this time he came armed with facts, fire, and straight-up receipts. He blasted Jillian's whole persona, ripping through the image she's built in the fitness and media world. He didn't just drag her for those comments. He called out the bigger hypocrisy, how some white people act offended when labeled racist. And Katt's point? Crystal clear. If being called racist really stings that much, maybe the energy shouldn't go into denial. Maybe it should go into action. Like addressing stolen labor, stolen land, and stolen wealth through reparations. Because until then, those 2% arguments don't erase the centuries of damage done. And then Katt dropped the jokes for a second and got real serious. He said there's a much darker reason why people like Jillian want black folks to just stop talking about slavery. According to Katt, it's not just ignorance. It's about controlling the whole narrative.
American chattel slavery was unlike any other system of enslavement in history due to its permanence, racialization, and extreme dehumanization. Unlike ancient slavery, where individuals could sometimes earn their freedom, marry into society, or hold status, American slavery was hereditary. Children born to enslaved mothers were enslaved for life, with no legal pathway to freedom. This system was codified into law, ensuring that black people were permanently seen as property, not individuals with rights. And while some point out that Africans participated in the slave trade by selling captives to Europeans, it is crucial to recognize that the system that they contributed to was vastly different from the chattel slavery that emerged in the Americas. African societies engaged in slavery as a byproduct of war or debt, often with opportunities for eventual freedom. What Europeans created was industrialized systems that permanently dehumanized an entire race with no possibility of liberation or dignity.
He broke it down. They want the story told like slavery ended because of white people's kindness. instead of the truth, which is that enslaved black people fought, resisted, escaped, and survived against impossible odds. Katt stressed that black women especially played a powerful role, leading revolts, protecting families, and carving out freedom when the system was designed to crush them. That's the part of history people like Jillian don't want you to see. So when Jillian jumps in defending Trump for wanting slavery exhibits erased from museums, Katt said it straight. That's not just commentary, that's rewriting history. That's trying to erase the blood, the courage, and the legacy of resistance, replacing it with some feel-good fantasy where oppressors get painted as heroes. And here's the kicker. This whole CNN debate even started because Trump himself declared war on the Smithsonian. He's mad that museums dare to show the ugly truth. On his Truth Social page, Trump ranted that museums are nothing but the last remaining segment of woke. He complained they focus too much on how bad slavery was and that they don't highlight enough success and brightness.
White friend, don't you want to get slavery behind you? You ain't never had a slave in your mother life. Get this past you. You pay them reparations, racism is dead. Get it past you, white friends.
Like seriously? Slavery was human trafficking on an industrial scale, and he thinks it's being exaggerated? Trump even bragged about ordering his lawyers to start scrubbing museums the same way he's been targeting colleges and universities. He literally said he doesn't want institutions teaching the harsh realities of America's past. And to back him up, the White House actually published a list on its official site, signaling they're dead serious about reshaping history into something more flattering. Trump's push went even further. He literally signed an executive order telling places like the Smithsonian to strip down their exhibits because, in his words, they make the country look bad. And here comes Jillian defending that mindset, basically co-signing the idea that slavery wasn't that serious. According to her logic, it was just a tiny percentage of white people. So why dwell on it? That's not just careless talk. That's rewriting history in real time.
They don't even talk about slavery in America, you know why? Because they don't want to give no credit to the people that got black people out of slavery in the first place. They don't want them to get no shine. So they erased it from history. But I'll say it right here in front of the world. Black women got black people out of slavery in America. That's the facts. As a group, black women did that.
Now let's break down the gaslighting in Jillian's argument. She tried to sound clever by saying, other races had slaves too. Sure, slavery existed in different cultures, but American slavery was something else entirely. It wasn't about war captives, debt, or punishment like in some societies where freedom could eventually be earned. No. In the US, slavery was locked to skin color. If you were black, you weren't just enslaved for life. Your children, grandchildren, and every generation after you inherited that bondage. That wasn't just slavery. That was chattel slavery. Human beings treated like property, passed down like a piece of land or a chair. No modern system industrialized slavery by skin color the way America did. And that's the ugly truth Jillian conveniently skipped. And this wasn't just cultural tradition. It was written into the very laws of the land. From the Constitution's 3/5 compromise to the Fugitive Slave Act, the U.S. government itself protected slavery and white supremacy. This wasn't about a few bad apples. The entire state was designed to uphold it.
Couldn't have built the biggest economy in the world without us.
Right.
It was actually built because of us.
This is true.
The largest reverse transfer of wealth, arguably in world history, in modern history, is black slavery. That's not me making an emotional statement. I'm not throwing darts.
It's a fact.
It's a fact.
Right.
I love math because it doesn't have an opinion.
Right.
And the fact is, we're the largest economy in the world. The fact is, the first millionaire in America came from cotton, financing it out of New York City.
Right.
The fact is that black slaves were worth more than railroads. Our railroads were arguably the most valuable asset in the 19th and part of the 20th century. Blacks were worth twice that. The fact is that we work for free for 270 some odd years. Nothing better than free labor. And the fact is that we couldn't create wealth, we couldn't create assets because we were assets. Bought, trade, insured, finance, underwritten. We were literally, whether if you're a bank, if you're a finance company, if you're an insurance company, if you were a trading company, I mean, 1 out of 5 people in the world at a certain point in the 1800s were involved or connected to cotton. Well, where did cotton come from? In the world. It came from us.
Right.
So when Jillian pretends like only 2% of white people were directly involved, she's ignoring the reality that all white people benefited from that system, whether they owned slaves or not. And let's not forget, the entire American economy was built on the backs of enslaved people. Cotton, tobacco, sugar. These weren't just industries, they were the industries. Cotton especially was called King Cotton for a reason. By the mid-1800s, it made up more than half of America's exports. That wealth fueled banks, railroads, factories, and the global economy. And who picked it? Enslaved black people, generation after generation, under brutal conditions that Jillian and people like her try to erase with a single misleading statistic. Who built that wealth? Enslaved black people. And the money didn't just sit in the pockets of Southern plantation owners. It spread everywhere. Banks in New York, shipping companies in Boston, factories in the North. Every corner of this country was cashing checks off the backs of slavery. So when Jillian says, stop blaming white people, she's skipping a huge fact. The very roads, universities, and corporations that made America powerful were bankrolled by profits from enslaved labor. And let's not forget, even poor white folks who couldn't afford slaves still benefited. They weren't in chains, they weren't being whipped, they weren't watching their children sold away. They could vote, own land, find jobs, and walk free without a slave catcher demanding papers. That freedom was only possible because black people were being dehumanized beneath them. So no, they might not have owned slaves, but they were still part of the winning team.
If you had the ability to control the black people on this planet, there isn't anything that you couldn't take, dismantle, destroy, or interrupt if you could mobilize black people. And so part of the ops agenda, a part of their modus operandi, is to find out which one of you is a potential leader. And if you are, then we begin a work of progress on your life, which will make people get off of that. It's a part of it, as much as in any defense, you trying to figure out which way this dude is likely to go so I can rip that ball. It's the same. You probably wonder, why do white people pay so much attention to black people if they don't like them? You would think if you didn't like something, why would you be paying attention to it? I don't pay attention to things I don't like. The liar knows what lie he told. You see what I'm saying? So even if I made it deceitful and I made you think that the answer is over here, but the answer is really over here, I'm still gonna be looking over here. Me, the one that tricked, because I know this is the right answer. Black people have lost their identity, but our oppressors have not lost our identity. That's just why they chopped those noses off of the Pharaoh and the Sphinx in Egypt in the first place, is because without this nose, we can tell you this is whoever it is. But with that nose, it can only be. Why would somebody vandalize a whole face and only vandalize one part? Nobody wanted to knock an eye off or take an ear off, or no chins missing. No, just the nose. Because it's a brand.
And here's the part Jillian really ignores. That wealth didn't vanish when slavery ended. The profits didn't dissolve into thin air. Families that owned plantations kept their land. Banks that financed slavery kept their fortunes. Insurance companies that literally insured enslaved people kept those payouts. That generational wealth rolled forward, stacking advantages for white families for centuries. Meanwhile, black families started from zero, actually worse than zero, because they were blocked from owning land, from opportunities by law and by violence. And every time black Americans built something for themselves, the system came crashing down to destroy it. Look at Tulsa's Black Wall Street in the early 1900s. Black folks had their own banks, Thriving businesses, beautiful communities. They proved they didn't need handouts. They were building wealth on their own terms. But in 1921, white mobs, with police and government backing, bombed it from the sky, set it on fire, and left the community in ruins. Hundreds killed, thousands left homeless, and millions in black wealth wiped out overnight. That wasn't just violence, it was economic sabotage, and the effects are still felt today. Now, with Trump declaring war on museums and rewriting school curriculums, all this history is on the chopping block, straight up being memory hold. And that's why Jillian defending Trump while saying don't blame white people isn't just wrong. It's flat out insulting because let's be real, America didn't rise to greatness despite slavery.
They fought wars, they led revolts, they built America. But in the US Constitution, they were counted as 3/5 of a person, not a full human, not even close. This wasn't a glitch, it was the law. In 1787, during the writing of the Constitution, the US made a deal. To give southern states more power, every 5 enslaved black people would count as 3/5. That's how slave states got more seats in Congress while keeping millions in chains.
America became America because of slavery. Yet here comes Trump saying we should stop talking about it because it makes the country look bad. But ask yourself, bad for who? Because when he says make America great again, that again is not about equality, opportunity, or progress. No, it's about a time when white power went unchecked, when segregation was written into law, and yes, when slavery itself was the engine of America's wealth. That's the so-called greatness they want to bring back, and Katt wasn't afraid to call it out. He said all this forget slavery talk is nothing but a distraction game. The real agenda? To keep black people divided and disconnected from the truth of their own history. Because once unity takes hold, the whole system shakes. Unity brings power, and with power, you can't be controlled, can't be silenced, and definitely can't be sold the same recycled lies twice. But here's the part that makes Jillian's comments truly disturbing. This is a woman raising a black child, yet she went on record saying white supremacy isn't the problem in America. Instead, she claimed the real issue is black degeneracy. And yes, those were her exact words. Just think about that. Imagine adopting a black daughter from Haiti, then turning around and publicly labeling black people as degenerate. That's not just hypocritical, that's twisted. How do you look your own child in the eyes and tell her the real problem in this country is supposedly her people? That's not tough love. That's straight up cruelty. And the internet didn't let it slide. Jillian is being dragged non-stop on social media, with people questioning how safe it even is for her daughter to grow up in that household. Because if this is the kind of language Jillian feels comfortable saying in public, then what's being said behind closed doors? That's the question everyone's asking. On X, one user wrote, Jillian Michaels' daughter is probably traumatized living with a mother who thinks black people are responsible for their own oppression. Another added, Jillian Michaels is the perfect example of I can't be racist, I have a black child. The comments are brutal, but they show how outraged people are at the idea that someone could adopt a child from a place like Haiti, then minimize slavery and blame black communities for the very oppression they endure. And now the spotlight's burning brighter than ever on Jillian, her words, and what they reveal about her mindset. Only God knows what goes on behind the scenes in celebrity households like this. But one thing's for sure, the receipts Katt Williams pulled out lit the fire, and the public is not letting this one go. And if you want the real tea, unfiltered and with the receipts, make sure you like, subscribe, drop a comment, and share this video. Because trust me, the stories we've got coming next, they're even wilder. See you on the next one.